This is Keith Weaver, and I hate doing these videos. If you know me at all, you'll know that I hate doing videos. But this is one that I feel kind of strongly about, just because as the COVID-19 continues, I find more and more people that I talk to, business owners and other people that I meet with virtually, are starting to show signs of depression and struggle with some depression or feelings of hopelessness. And these can be hard times for a lot of people, as lots of businesses are kind of shutting down or running with minimal staff, and businesses are starting to hurt with decreased business and a feeling of kind of an inability to market, or just that their ideal clients are starting to hold on to their money, not buy, because of fear of things will continue for an indefinite amount of time. They may not have enough money to get through. And with all this going on, it's easy to feel that things are out of control, and there's a sense of helplessness in not being able to change one's circumstances because so many outside forces are in play: disease, governmental regulations, public opinion, and all of those things seem to have more control than what maybe we have control internally. And so I want to give some tips that might help with dealing with these issues and give us a more healthy mental perspective in getting through these difficult times. But I want to approach it by talking about a psychological concept called Locus of Control. And so I want to share my screen and be able to talk to you about this. So let me set up sharing my screen real quick. So hopefully you can see my screen now. So locus is a word that means place, hub, or home. So locus of control basically means that where do we feel control in our lives? And there's two basic places that we deal with on a regular basis. There's internal locus of control and an external locus of control. And so if I have a strong internal locus of control, I personally feel that I have control over my thoughts, my actions, my success. An external locus of control is where we feel like someone else, something outside of ourselves, government or someone else or something else has control of ourselves. It might even be higher power or anyone else. And both are true and both are legitimate. But locus of control is less about reality and more about one's perception. A quick example, say I go apply for a job and I have an interview and I don't get the job. I can perceive that I didn't get the job because I was not qualified enough, my resume needs some work, or I didn't answer the questions right, or those kind of things. It just didn't go well. And that would be kind of an internal locus of control. Or I can perceive that I didn't get the job because traffic made me late and flustered me, or the interviewer was maybe threatened by me or gave me some kind of weird looks and didn't seem to like me, or they didn't like the school I went to, whatever it might be. And those are kind of a focus on an external locus of control. And again, all of these things may be true, but I'm going to respond to a situation very differently depending on which locus of control I dwell and focus on the most. And there are advantages and disadvantages to both. That's why we have to balance these things. And under normal circumstances, the average person balances these two perceptions, or loci, plural for locus, based on one's upbringing, experiences, values, and beliefs. And we do a good job of balancing those. For example, a religious person may have a stronger sense of an external locus of control, feeling that a higher power has some control and can aid them externally. But they still can have maintain a balance of internal and external locus of control. And there's not necessarily a wrong or right way in balancing those two loci. It's just the way we are, and everybody's a little different. But there are some benefits and negative things related to both. Those that have a strong sense of an internal locus of control typically work harder to achieve things. They're less influenced by other people's opinions. They take more action. They learn easier from their mistakes, trying to have that control for the next time. And they're more driven to success typically, right? However, those that have a strong sense of external locus of control typically are able to let go of their mistakes and move on better, right? Because they can see other factors involved. They make better team players, seeing the benefits that others bring. They are more willing to seek help from others, and they're more teachable. So it makes a nice balance when we have both of those involved. However, there are less positive aspects of having a strong sense of external locus of control or internal. For an internal locus of control, someone that is overly focused on the internal locus of control can be very self-centered. You might know people like that, very self-centered, narcissistic. They don't delegate well, right? They're all about control. They're all about maintaining that. And over time, in the extreme, they can become very neurotic, really. However, there's also negatives to kind of an overabundance of an external locus of control, because we're quick to blame others and slow to take responsibility. We may have feelings of powerlessness or hopelessness. We can show less motivation, right? And we can be far less resilient in struggles and difficult times, which ultimately can lead to more depression. And extreme situations, if we're looking at PTSD, they're the ones that have suffered more from symptoms of PTSD because they see those external factors that they can't control. So, as I stated earlier, normally we balance these two very well. But when a trauma or a major uncontrollable event happens, our homeostasis, our balance between the internal and external, can get thrown. And a lot of times it's much more that we perceive an external locus of control that leads to helplessness and powerlessness. And all these things can come with it. And so some common examples of this, maybe like POWs, that POWs from war, or people that have suffered through major earthquakes or natural disasters, or even, pandemics, for example. And there's two kind of main factors that will affect us as far as whether this balance remains with us or not. And these two factors are, first of all, intensity. How much the event affects our daily lives, our activities, our health, stability, etc. If it affects just a small aspect of our lives, not very intense. If it affects everything, whether we have a place to live, whether we have a job, whether we have food, the more aspects that it affects, the more intense it is. The second factor is the length. It can be extremely impactful, extremely intense, but if it only lasts for a half a day or a day, it's not going to affect us very much. But the longer it goes on, week, 2 weeks, month, 2 months, a year, whatever it is, the longer that goes on, the more impactful. So it's kind of an equation of intensity times length of time equals how impactful that is on our lives and how disruptive it is to the balance in this homeostasis of internal and external locus of control. And again, it's not necessarily about reality, it's about our perception. And this is the good news, because we have much more control over our response, our healthy outlook, our stability of mental health that goes into it than the outside world. We can have that kind of control. And although I know we're not going through anything like a war or being a prisoner of war right now, there's some great examples and stories that have come out of concentration camp survivors and other POW survivors that we can learn from. So I want to focus on just maybe one example. There's a Colonel Hall that was a Vietnam POW from the Vietnam War. And for years, along with many others, he was a POW, and they were mentally and physically tortured. They were starved. They were kept in isolation. Um, and their whole world consisted, for the most part, of a 7.5 foot square cell without basic even necessities, right? And the prisoners had little to no control or contact with others or what was going on in their lives. Almost their entire life was controlled by an external loci. Whether it was, did they have food that day, whether they were tortured, or whether they came and got shot, on a given day or something. And the only lifeline the prisoners had was their virtual world that they were able to create, sometimes in the theater of their own minds, and maintain that internal locus of control to kind of balance that. So Colonel Hall, his story is famous because he learned to maintain an internal locus of control by creating and playing a mental game of golf every day. And that was his aspect to maintain that balance. So he would detail every aspect of the course, each hole, the smell of the grass, putting on his clothes, his shoes, every detail he could of playing that perfect golf game. And he would do that day after day. And he was a prisoner of war well over 5 years. But the results were he suffered far less PTSD than a lot of POWs. In fact, while others would waste away as POWs, he and others like him were able to thrive mentally and maintain a healthy sense of who they were, self-control, their own power, their own internal self-identity, right, during the times that they were the POWs. So learning from that, how do we maintain a balance of a healthy internal locus of control when it seems like life is spiraling out of control and we have little control over income, social outlets, or being able to maintain previous social norms and routines, right? Or whether we're going to be able to make our house payment this month, things like that. So let me offer you some proven ABCs to maintain this realistic and healthy balance. And so the first A, is awareness. The first step is that we have to do a self-assessment. We have to understand the pressures and tendencies that exist to kind of push us toward those external factors, that external locus of control, to make us feel helpless and hopeless. We must understand our internal homeostasis when it's out of balance, right? Once we have that self-awareness, the next one is kind of what I call A.1, right? Is we have to have a strong attitude. We have to have a take charge, can-do attitude, a determination attitude that not only do we have the power to control that balance, but we're going to take that power and that control and continue to have that balance. Kind of like Colonel Hall. There are many examples that we can learn from people in history, or even right now in our society. If you look around, there's people that are maintaining that great balance, and we can learn from them. We can even lean on them, or use them as an example to develop that strong determination. The B in the ABCs is behaviors. So we need to find a positive behavior or behaviors that will aid us in implementing our determination and reaching that goal of maintaining that balance. And there's no one size fits all. It's very individualistic, and it must be developed internally based on our strengths, based on who we are. But here are some common things that have worked for a lot of people that I've worked with and have known over the years. So one is self-talk. To monitor and practice positive self-talk. It's real easy to kind of get our self-talk turned around and get negative kind of. And so we got to have a positive self-talk and maintain that internally, where it's positive, it's reassuring, and it's providing strength for us. Another one is positive affirmations. which is kind of related. This can be immensely powerful as well, to find an affirmation that you really believe in and that you can learn, say, practice, and live. And an affirmation that will help you maintain that sense of who you truly are, your true nature, your true potential. And just on a personal note, for example, one of mine affirmations is, I'm an eternal being of self-control, self-direction, and charity. Just a simple affirmation reminding me of who I am and my potential. Another one is problem solving. And this is a skill that maintains great internal control, because the nature of problem solving is having to work around barriers, whether internal or external, to solve a problem. So we have to be creative and often very in-depth in our approach to problem solving. So if we find a problem that we're wanting to work on, and we work on the solution, and even if it involves other people, brainstorming with them, bring them involved. But if we keep working on that problem and not give up until we find a solution either through or around those barriers, that's going to give us a great deal of focus on our ability to overcome barriers and work on those problem solvings, even if it's just small problems. That's going to keep us maintained on a focus of internal locus of control. Another one that's very related to that is goal setting. Combined with problem solving, this makes a wonderful combination, because as we set goals for ourselves, we have to problem solve ways to make that happen, to achieve that goal, right? And as things change, we have to problem solve different ways to achieve that goal. And it may be a goal of staying fit, learning a new skill, or sharpening a skill that we already have. But set a goal and have the attitude that you're going to make it happen, and you're going to see that goal through one way or the other, right? As things change, you're going to change and adapt with it to maintain that goal and achieve that target. The C that goes to the ABCs is consequences and outcomes. As we go through the ABCs, we have to maintain and monitor the results. Going back to the example of Colonel Hall, mental game of golf. If it didn't work for him, if he didn't achieve the goal of maintaining that internal self-identity, that internal locus of control, do you think he would have kept doing it? I personally highly doubt it. In fact, for all we know, he may have tried 10 or 20 other things before he tried the mental game of golf. But once he got it, he maintained that, right? And it worked for him. He found something that worked for him. So it may not be that we find something right off the bat. We may have to do some trial and error, find some things, go back to the ABCs and start over. Start over at the beginning of the alphabet, if you will, and work on finding something else that will help us maintain that positive sense of self and that positive sense of internal locus of control, that we have control over aspects of our lives that are important to maintain who we are, what our potential is, those kind of things. We can get through this. We can maintain a healthy and positive perspective on ourselves and our mental health. If we're motivated, we stay resilient, we take action. And in the common sense of what my trainer always tells me, you got this, we got this. We just have to put the effort in and maintain that balance. Hopefully this has been helpful. And, if you have any questions or comments, I would love to hear your comments and look forward to hearing from you. Thanks.